So welcome to this webinar. This is a topic of commercial thinking, and this is the next in the, well, very long series. It seems to be developing into quite a long series of episodes on the topic of building professional and personal development in marketing. You can see that we have had quite a number of really interesting topics within the series so far. We've covered things like negotiation skills, communication, presentation, the art of persuasion, thought leadership, professionalism in marketing, and most recently, agility, flexibility, and creativity. But today we're here to talk about the all-important topic of commercial thinking. And this, I'm hoping, will help you to see your role if you're in a business development, marketing, digital content production kind of role. See it in a slightly different light or a slightly different context, because this is a moment that for all of us in marketing, business development and communication, we have a huge and probably an unprecedented opportunity to take our game to the next level. And that's really what I want to focus on here in this session. As I say, this is an episode in a very long series. We are moving sort of between something like professional skills where you can be looking at the more kind of technical skills within marketing and digital, as well as some of the, and they used to be called soft skills. I don't really like that phrase now. I rather call them essential skills, because these are the more kind of personal performance and behavioral things. And we've got a very interesting topic coming up on the 15th of October, webinar 11 in our series, which is going to focus on emotional intelligence and empathy. That is a really pertinent topic right now, where we're all kind of going through a lot of uncertainty and for some people quite a sort of chaotic environment, both professionally and personally. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of sort of things that are really up in the air and really haven't settled. And then we're going to extend that on into the second half of October. And on the 29th, we'll be looking at continuous improvement in webinar 12, and then developing that kind of concept and thinking in terms of resilience. And resilience is one of those really important topics. Some people think of resilience as something that's maybe a little bit negative. I view it in a very positive way. I think resilient marketers, resilient sales, business development people, and leaders in organizations are the ones who are going to be able to be here tomorrow. So it isn't just about focusing on today. It's very much about sort of thinking about the strategic and the future direction of both your role, your team, your colleagues, and also the business more generally. And that is one of the things that I'm really here to focus on today, is the commercial approach to your role, and hopefully extending your thinking and just getting you to sort of challenge really kind of where you are right here today. And that's hopefully something I've been doing. For those of you who have been on previous sessions, you'll know that that is kind of what I do. Is I sort of sometimes a little bit contentious with some of the things that we talk about, but it is very much to kind of challenge that status quo, challenge kind of where we are today. And hopefully if you take one little golden nugget away from this webinar, that is me, job done. If you've missed any of these previous recordings, Lauren has just put into the chat that you can get a copy of the link to these recordings via Lauren. So that's Lauren at marketingcollege.com, and she will be very happy to send these to you. I know on the webinar here today, we've got quite a few of you coming back as regulars in this series, so welcome. If this is the first time that you've been onto this series, very big welcome to you. As I always sort of tee this up with, you can register for any of the upcoming events at marketingcollege.com/events. That's the page where you can see these upcoming events, get a little bit more detail behind them, just check out that they are for you right here, right now, and then you can register in advance. And we do ask you to register in advance, just so we get an idea of numbers, and obviously that we can then share sort of further information with you as we go. Again, if you're new to the process here in these webinars, we use the chat facility, which you'll find in your menu bar to post me any questions, to basically challenge me if you wish to. I'm not here to say that I know everything or that I've got everything right. So please do challenge. You know, I'm very, very happy to get into a discussion. So if there's anything I cover, you think you've got a better example, or you think you'd like me to cover it in a slightly different way, please do challenge. It's very much a two-way webinar. But if you do have any questions, I will endeavour to answer those towards the end of the session, and we'll kind of see how that goes. So don't wait till the end of the session to pose a question. Use the chat facility. And if you're also watching this on catch up, you can direct message me on any social networks. You'll find me at Neil Wilkins X, and I will take obviously any questions, and hopefully we'll get into a little conversation through that if you're watching this on catch up. So let's get into this. I mean, I always try and sort of get into it quickly rather than do what a lot of people do in webinars. They waffle for about 3/4 of the time and then give you one little thing towards the end of it. I like to try and get into the details. So let's start talking and thinking about thinking commercially. Okay, because I personally feel this is a really huge opportunity for every single level of marketer. So I'm not just talking to you here if you are in a senior marketing role. You know, you could be marketing director, head of marketing, senior marketing manager. Yes, I am talking to you, but I'm also talking to you if you are a marketing apprentice, marketing junior, content producer. This is appropriate to you as well, okay? Because all of us, and I put myself in this category as well, can improve our commercial thinking each and every day. And so I'm going to be sharing with you ways and tips and ideas that I've gleaned from watching and listening to people over the last 18 to 24 months who are actually doing this really, really well. Okay, there are some people out there who are marketers who have raised their game and now are pushing towards a seat at the top table. And when I talk about top table, it could be at the senior management level, or it could be at the board level. Okay, so if you want a seat at the top table, if you want to be pushing, you know, the credibility of marketing within your organization, or if you just want to get a bit of a voice, what I'm going to share with you as we go through this session are ways that you can begin that journey and begin to do it. Okay, this is a huge, unprecedented opportunity. And the reason I say that is because the word commercial is probably more than you think right now. Okay, so for a lot of people, and if you look at the definition in a lot of the marketing textbooks, if you do searches on Google to find out kind of, you know, define for me what commercial thinking and commercial awareness is, you will find definitions like this. Okay, and this to me is the old school definition of commercial. Mindtools.com, I'm not giving them a particular sort of disrespect here, but they are one of a number of different definitions that you'll find if you Google this stuff. And they say that commercial awareness is the understanding of how your business and your industry operates and makes money. Okay, well, it is. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that, but it is also so much more than that. To me, the money side of things is one pretty essential element, but it is just one ingredient in the whole menu. Okay, there are more ways that we can actually define value, and that is what we're going to talk about as we go through the session here today. I prefer a more modern definition of commercial thinking or commercial awareness, or as I like to think about it, a commercial focus, because it's all very well thinking about it and being aware of it. We've got to, as marketers, put this stuff into practice every single day. So we have to actually execute and deliver and actually perform and behave in a more commercial way, not just think and talk about it. We actually have to do some doing. So for me, I really like this particular definition, and I did quite a lot of searching on, you know, an appropriate definition that would kind of talk the way I'm talking about this. And this particular definition says commercial focus or awareness talks about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of a business in relation to how it gains profit, but also it adds customer satisfaction and the biggest challenges. It's a broken system for a business to make money. Well, I would add in the word just. So it's a broken system for a business just to make money. So to me, commercial thinking is about this provision of value right across the organization. So talking the right things and providing value to all of your colleagues, not only in marketing, but actually outside marketing as well. So we need to think across the business. And as I said at the start, I don't care if you're in a really junior role or really senior role, you have an opportunity, and I would say and challenge you, you have a responsibility to think and operate more commercially. Okay, and I'm going to help you do that and help you think about that. But that is my challenge to you, is that you are in this really fortunate position to have the voice and the ears of the customer focused on you, looking at you, sharing stuff with you, responding to what you do. And that's why I say is if you're a junior content producer and you think, well, this isn't really about me, this is about my manager and the manager above them. No, it's not. This is about you, because you are producing content and engaging with the customer. You are at the forefront of the organization. And so you get an opportunity here to be sharing some of that valuable information back into the business and translating it for everybody in the business so it means something to them. If you're a junior marketer or you're a marketing exec and you're looking to maybe do some reporting, it's not about reporting the numbers. We've talked about this in previous webinars. It's not just about the numbers and reporting those things. It's about really taking accountability for reporting the important value that those numbers are bringing to the business. So let's do some interpretation. Let's do some deep analysis of what we see, figure out what's going on and start talking about that and start talking and making recommendations, not just reporting the numbers. Okay, I'm going to come down off my high horse just for a moment, but you know where I'm coming from here. This is about starting to raise the bar, starting to sort of think, do you know, I could do that little bit more. And what I want you to be thinking about, and I'm going to kind of build up to this towards the end of this webinar, I'd like you to think about, could I challenge myself to behave and act and operate at the next level up beyond the role that I currently have? Okay, even if I'm not rewarded financially for doing that. Now, there's a huge challenge. There's a huge challenge to you, because if you're willing to do this stuff, I have seen over the decades so many examples of people who have literally taken this and thought, do you know, I'm going to operate as though I'm in the next job up. Where can the business take you from there? They can only take you into that role because you're actually doing it. You've taken the accountability, you've taken that kind of credible position of the next level up. And if people fall by the wayside behind you, well, that's kind of their responsibility. Thinking commercially allows you to move into a position where you get the control, where you get so much more power in the work that you do. So let's kind of figure out how we're going to do this then. So becoming more commercial, thinking it and operating it and doing it, obviously makes you more attractive because you are talking from a position of a lot more understanding and commercial sensibility. So potentially you're going to be actually really quite attractive, not only to the current organization, but also potentially to recruiters. Let's just say in the future, because if you're on this with your line manager, they probably don't want you listening to me encouraging you to go get another job. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this actually makes you very, very attractive because talking and thinking commercially is a very attractive thing for an organization. Having a commercial attitude allows you to think more broadly about the impact that you're making, but also the impact that your team and others around you are making, not just to deliver the numbers and what your job description says you should be doing, but actually making some really good inroads to positive change within your organization. Another thing, and these are some lists that are coming out from targetjobs.com, and if you focus on their blogs on targetjobs.com, you'll see some other really good examples of this. They've done a lot of thinking around this area in terms of how, by taking a more commercial, thoughtful stance, you can be really, really attractive within the overall job market. Having a big picture focus, okay, is another really quite profound difference to possibly how you're working today. You know, we've all been told and all been kind of trained to kind of get your head down, get your work done, and then basically go home, rest, come back and repeat. But actually what we're saying here is that the more commercially thoughtful people in your organization, they have this kind of big picture focus. They have a thirst to find out the why. Why is what I'm doing making an impact? Why did that not work? How is this going to be improved? What could we actually do better? How could we innovate? Maybe we've got an opportunity to pivot here because there's an opportunity over there. They're kind of always looking beyond their current boundaries. They're hungry and thirsty for a more commercial sort of perspective, if you like, on their organization. And they're also more business minded. In other words, they look at the business as a whole holistic entity, as a group of people, as a group of kind of operations, of processes. They don't just think about their job. Yes, they do their job, and they do their job very effectively, but the commercially astute also think about the wider impacts, and they're just basically really helpful to the way that the business and organization sort of operates more generally. So how do we actually take this kind of forward then? Because it's all very well to sort of think this stuff and sort of be talking about this stuff, but how do we actually convey commercial awareness to the others around us? And again, targetjobs.com, head over to there and look at their blog and you get a load more detail on this. But I just picked out kind of 5 key areas where I saw that there was some really quite sort of big opportunities here for them to be doing this sort of quite nicely. Now, one of the areas that they talk about is that people who convey commercial awareness have a really kind of deep understanding of the business and its marketplace. Now, of course, you know, what are we positioned as in marketing? We're positioned really well to be able to understand the marketplace, because here we are focusing on the customer, focusing on the competitors, and of course, reflecting that back into the organization is one of those key kind of strengths and opportunities that we have that maybe others in the organization don't have. And also extending that on, I've just mentioned the word competitors there, knowing how the major players are performing at present within the organization is again a really important thing. So that competitive awareness, that is how to convey commercial awareness. Now, of course, what can we do? We can talk to sales, we can talk to customer support, and kind of work collaboratively to report back in how the major players are performing at present. Because those kinds of pieces of knowledge, that kind of information can really, truly help those decision makers within the business just to make better decisions. So that helps us to convey proper commercial awareness. It also enables us to kind of speculate intelligently about the future. Now, that is an important one. One of the things about being more commercially thoughtful and more commercially aware is that we allow ourselves and we enable ourselves to speculate about what might happen in the future. Now, I know at this time in the year, as we enter into the fall or into the autumn, depending on where you're listening to this from, we're into planning stage, we're into planning season. And one of the things that we really need to be doing here is to really speculate about how the future might look. So commercial awareness, really listening to how the rest of the organization is responding to the competitive environment, allows us to speculate really intelligently about the future and what might happen. And it also enables us to then balance that with how future trends might work with our knowledge of the past. Kind of put those things together and then actually put that into our planning and our decision making. And of course, then adding into that, how our role may affect the future performance of the business. In other words, what we do, how can that impact on how the position of our business is within the overall marketplace? So there's a whole bunch of things to really be talking about and sharing. So competitive environment, how the major players are performing, the future, trends. I always use that word trends. If you've listened to my previous webinars, you'll know this word trends comes in loud and clear time and time again. It's so important. But conveying that and sharing trends that you see and actually having those conversations, some of it is going to be hot air. Some of it is not going to be particularly helpful to you, but a lot of those trends might open up opportunities. So knowing which ones are there, knowing which ones you can use, opens up an opportunity to do things differently and really progress things forward. So what we're really saying here is that we need to be talking the talk. What we need to be doing is talking the language of the organization and the different people we need to engage with. Now, of course, if we look at the overall marketing mix, and again, because we're marketing, we should be reflecting that marketing mix and understanding kind of what that means to the organization. So let's take the first one. I'm going to look at product, I'm going to look at people, we're going to look at process, and we're going to look at profit. Okay, for me, the 4 new P's in the marketing mix: product, people, process, profit. So let's look at the first one, product. So who in the organization is interested in product? Well, obviously production, probably sales. You might have a new product development team, depending on the size of your organization. Now, the question, obviously, talking commercially to them, is not to be talking your marketing speak or your content speak or your, social media insight speak, is actually translating that and talking their language. And the kind of things that can get you into the mindset of production and sales is to actually maybe challenge yourself with, can you answer a really tricky question that they might be facing? This is commercial thinking, okay? So one of the questions they might be thinking is, the competition are consistently taking your previously loyal customers by price slashing. So how would you respond? Okay, now you might be sat there thinking, well, that's not a question for me, that's a question for somebody else. I don't kind of have that in my job description. Okay, but I'm challenging that actually you could, and you should, and you actually do, if you're one of these commercially astute, real contributors within your organization. You should have a perspective, you should have a view on that question. Because if you're talking commercially to production or sales, these are the kind of challenges that they want your help with. So if the competition are consistently taking your previously loyal customers by price slashing, how do you respond? Reflect on that question. See if you can come up with some ways within your business, within your organization, to be able to respond with some ideas. This is getting into the mindset of others in your organization. They don't really care what you do. They're much more passionate about trying to solve their own problems. So can you get and talk the talk with them? Let's take the next one in the marketing mix, the one that we might call people. Who is interested in people in the organization? Well, obviously, HR, talent development, customer service, you could have others. And what would they be thinking about? What is their kind of biggest challenge? Well, it could be something like, how would you manage your investors' response to a bad news story in the press? In other words, crisis management. And you might be sat there thinking, well, crisis management, that's got nothing to do with me. I just get on with my day job. But again, I'm challenging you. You should have a perspective. You should have a view on, if you're taking this commercially astute position in your organization, you'd have a view on how you'd manage your investors' response to a bad news story in the press. Again, another style of question from another team in the organization. So could you help them to answer that kind of question? This is about taking that broader perspective that I talked about before. This is about thinking more broadly about the challenges that the rest of the organization has. It's not about losing sleep over this stuff, but it's about getting into the mindset of these others in the organization and talking things from their language. Let's take the next P, process. And a lot of the times when we talk about things like process, we're talking about operations, we're talking about systems. It could be the IT department, it could be, any of the kind of supply chain side, the buying team within your organization. And again, here's another question. And again, if you're a commercially astute marketer, you should be thinking about this kind of thing. The question that would be very, very challenging for them would be, what would you do if your product supply lead times quadrupled? In other words, if the time to market for supplying products suddenly goes out by 4 times, what do you do? Because this will be the kind of thing that they're going to be challenged with. So getting into the mindset of where their, sort of day-to-day crises and their day-to-day challenges are, allows you to begin to spin what you want to say in such a way that it's actually meaningful for them. So commercially thinking, commercially astute marketers are starting to address some of these challenges using the language of these other people in the organization. It's a very, very important, it's quite subtle, but it's a very, very important way of conveying that you have moved the bar up. You're not just delivering on your day job, in your role, against what you're being paid for. You're actually being a great sort of citizen, if you like, within the community that is your organization. And here's a big one. This is the big, 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 big one. Of the 4 Ps that I talked about, product, process, people, and profit, I think when we're thinking commercially, we do need to have a very clear view on how we're going to talk profit. In other words, how are we going to talk to the finance team? Because if you report to the finance team how many followers and likes you've had on your latest social media campaign, you will just watch their eyes glaze over. They're not interested. That is not a commercially astute marketer. What they want to know is how are you investing the resources that they're giving you? So here's a question they would like you to answer would be, given £50,000 to invest in a project, what would you do? And so they want you to kind of interpret something that's quite financially astute in a language that they will understand. So they're looking for return on investment. They're looking for a timeline. They're looking for effective project management. They're looking for managing the risk. They're looking for having a contingency plan. They're not looking for how would you make that look good and sound great in social. They're looking for a proper management of this investment, because the word is investment there. £50,000 to invest in a project. What would you do? So do you see what I'm doing here? I'm kind of giving you a few little clues. You need to translate this into your organization, because obviously it's going to be very specific and personal to you and the people you work with. But the clue here is this word investment. And that's the word they want to be talking about. If you see your marketing as a cost, and of course lots of businesses do see marketing as a cost, this is an opportunity for you to turn that around and say, it's not a cost, it's an investment. And by using the word investment, I'm going to give you a return on investment. You wouldn't invest money in the stock market, for example, and expect it just to be a spend and cost. You'd expect to get something back. And so that is what your finance team are looking for from you. So commercial thinking in marketing turns cost and budget into the word investment. It's talking the language of the people in your organization. And this is how you fundamentally change how you convey your commercial acumen. And if you don't do this way, if you still continue to talk marketing, again, watch people's eyes glaze over. And is it any wonder we still don't have a seat at the top table? Those who do this are consistently seeing moving up through the organization. And what they're able to do once they start to do that is start to talk more strategically. And this is one of the real bugbears for me. If you've heard my other webinars, you'll know I've mentioned this a few times. This word strategy, when people say, oh, I've got a load of strategies for how I'm going to manage this campaign. And we've got these strategies for, sort of finishing off the end of this year. And whoa, yes, I've got a load of social media strategies. What they actually mean is tactics. We have to get our language correct, okay? The rest of the business understands that strategy is a medium to long-term view. So as soon as you start saying you've got marketing strategies and it's for this year, they know that you're not commercially astute. What they know you mean really is tactics. So separate out those two things. Don't say tactics when you mean strategy, and don't say strategy when actually you're probably meaning tactics. Tactics is the short-termism. Tactics are those day-to-day, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter things you're going to do this year to help you deliver on your strategy, which is that medium to longer-term position that you're trying to get to. Be very, very clear about that, because the rest of the business is clear. So you need to be too. And when people say tactics, what they're looking for really are these trends. They're not working to knee-jerk reactions. And one of the most commercially astute things that you can do as a marketer is not to react to knee-jerk things, little snapshots, little moments in time without the evidence that it's a trend, because you could then just be chasing yourself, chasing your tail on something that actually isn't sort of profoundly important. So always be on the lookout for those trends. That's when you can become a bit more strategic. If you can see that something has been consistently happening over time and you've got the evidence for it, then you're more valuable to the business. That is a more commercially viable thing to do and to work with, a trend, not a reaction. And another thing that you can do to commercially think within this kind of more strategic viewpoint, i.e. helping the organization to move to a longer term sustainable future, is to start thinking about solving the bottlenecks in the customer journey. No experience that a customer has is perfect. You never see 100% of the people who come through the front door making a purchase. It simply does not happen, never has happened, never will happen. But what we can do is encourage a higher percentage of people to go from the awareness stage through to convert. So helping the organization to solve those little bottlenecks where, a number of people just drop off either for a process reason or for an unattractive proposition reason, or just because the complicated process kind of tied them down. Helping to solve bottlenecks of process, of product, of proposition, of availability, all of those things in the customer journey, helping to solve those bottlenecks is a really strong strategic thing you can do. So get passionate about your customer journey and add a load of energy into what we call the CLV, the customer lifetime value. This is a term that you can own. Okay, if you don't already start to use this in conversations when you're talking to others in your organization, this is something you can almost train people around you to start getting really obsessed with customer lifetime value. And this comes in all different shapes and forms and guises. But if this isn't something that you talk about as a business, this is now the opportunity to do that. This is the time when you can jump in and say, right, I'm going to own CLV. I'm going to help the business understand what that is. And I'm going to help show and demonstrate with evidence how together we can start moving this game forward. So we consistently provide more and more and increasing amounts of value to the customer. And we're going to do this together. So I'm not just going to do a marketing campaign and hand that over to the organization. I'm going to follow it through and see what happened for the customer. Because if you're doing marketing campaigns that just hand over stuff to maybe sales to follow up or maybe other points in the business, and then you just get back to doing your day job, you've missed that opportunity to really take ownership of the energy of that customer flowing through the journey that they're going on with you as a brand. So own that CLV, own that customer lifetime value, and that can be a great way of bonding the rest of the organization in with you and your conversations. They will enjoy you taking ownership of that. And what that starts you to do, and you can do this with your line manager, your boss, or whoever you report to, because what they really want to hear is you have got all stakeholders covered, okay? They want you to extend your thinking beyond just thinking about the customer. Our remit as marketing now, and I'm talking to the marketers here predominantly, our remit here is so much more than just providing, it's obviously very important, but just providing customer value. It is now stakeholder value. We've needed to move this beyond just customers to our resellers, to our suppliers, to our partners, to everybody involved in working with us as a brand. So our boss really wants to hear that we've got all stakeholders covered, that we're owning, beyond our day-to-day role, we're owning how our role impacts within the organization. This is how commercially astute marketers are doing it. Okay, they're thinking about all the other stakeholders and how what they do might impact on them. Might not be today, might not be directly, could be indirectly, and it could be tomorrow. But commercially astute marketers know that there's an impact from everything that they do on stakeholders in even the tiniest of ways, but those can have profound impacts going forward. Your boss also really wants to hear that you're making them look great. Okay, commercially astute marketers, commercially thinking marketers don't provide their line manager with a report that's got a load of numbers in it, requiring that manager to make interpretations and judgments from it. They feed them recommendations. They feed them decision-making ideas. They feed them options, okay? They provide backup plans. They give them an out, and they just make them look great. They don't say, right, here's my data, here's my spreadsheet. Okay, I know you've got to go into a meeting in an hour's time. Here's all the data. They actually provide the presentation to their boss. Now, what does that do? One, it shows you that you are a real collaborator, you're a real team player. And marketing is a very extrovert, team-related discipline, if you like. So that is an expectation. So help your boss look great. The better your boss looks, the better you look. But also think about this, and if you've got your line manager or boss on this call with you, tell them to kind of hold their ears at the moment, because this is the bit that's really helpful, is that by making them look great, actually what it does, and don't let them hear this bit, but you just take this bit on yourself, what it does, it actually makes your life easier, because what you're doing is you are guiding, you're influencing, and you're directing them in a direction that serves you as well. Okay, so there's a bit of a win-win going on here. You're making them look great, but you're making them look great in the stuff that's going to help you in your role going forward as well. Another thing they want to hear is that you are getting more innovative, that you're not just doing the same old stuff, that you're not just ticking the boxes of your job description and going home at 5 o'clock. You're actually becoming more innovative. You're, a bit more blue sky thinking. You're kind of pivoting and you're asking the question, what if? And you're challenging them to give you some space and time to do a little bit more thinking about what you do. And actually a little bit of improvement on the processes, maybe shadowing others in the organization. And you're coming up with some really new things. Here's a little simple throwaway example. You've already thought and you've already given them an idea about what you could NFT within your organization. Now, you might be sat there thinking, don't know what he means with that. I'm not going to tell you right here, right now, because if you don't know what NFT is and you're in a marketing role, you need to Google NFTs and figure out if there's a time or a space or a place right now in which NFT might fit into your marketing mix. Even if the answer is no, you could NFT some of the stuff that you're doing in your organization right here, right now. And that could be a little innovative spin that allows you to raise the bar in terms of, wasn't expecting that from them. Maybe I'll give them this special project over here because clearly they're thinking differently. So have a look at NFT. Think about what you could NFT within your business. If the answer is no, you can't, then that's fine, but at least you're aware. And that would, to me, be a really interesting example of something super innovative, maybe just a little bit too early in the game, but that allows you to start stretching your thinking and challenge yourself. Can I come up with something new? Maybe not every moment of every day, but certainly every week. And always, always, always provide evidence, evidence, evidence. Your boss really wants to hear from you, evidence. That is all that really matters, because they can then stand up in the management meeting or at the senior level and they can confidently say, we're recommending this because, look, here's our evidence. And invariably give solutions, not problems. Never, ever, as a commercially astute marketer, go to your boss with problems. Give them solutions. You've already thought through the way that you can deal with the problem, okay? Because if you give them a problem or a challenge, think about the energetic flow there. Think about how they're going to feel as a result of you doing that. Oh, you can just see their shoulders dropping at that moment. But if you give them a solution, it's like, oh, I can see we've got a problem here, but wow, you've already semi-solved it. Well, it could kind of work like that, but of course, then you get into those conversations. And so who then is going to become the trusted advisor? It's going to be you. So if you're looking to differentiate because you happen to work in quite a large team where you're all kind of doing the same thing, these are the ways that commercially astute marketers rise above their peers, become more commercially attractive to the organization and get those special projects because they're just a really, really good collaborative team player within the organization. And yes, commercial thinking, I said right at the start, does involve the use of numbers. You know, if you're not fully comprehensively aware of things like profit and loss, balance sheet, NPV, return on capital employed, and some of these more sort of accountancy-based terminologies, then yeah, just do a few little online courses, watch a few little YouTube videos, just get familiar with the language. There are some which are obviously, as we've been talking through this, a little bit more pertinent and poignant for us as marketers, but do know some of those terms because you will encounter those. And if you're already in a senior role, you'll kind of know how your role fits within some of these challenges. But if you're an aspiring marketer or looking to start taking the journey as a commercially thoughtful, commercially astute marketer, then here are 3 things I think that you can really, really focus on. Philip Kotler's current favorite is customer acquisition cost. Kotler, if you're not aware of him, you possibly should be, one of the great thinkers and the great minds within marketing over many, many years. His current favorite, if you listen to him currently on sort of podcasts and webinars and stuff, you'll hear he's constantly talking about customer acquisition cost. It's really important. It's not all about just getting the volume of customers through the door right now. We all have to be very, very aware of how much it's costing to get those customers through the door. So go and do some research, go and ask around the organization, see if you can figure that out. It might not just be you that can do this alone, but talk to finance, try and figure out if there's a process or a system or an equation that can help you figure that bit out. Because if you can start reducing the customer acquisition cost, instantly, you're a more profitable organization. It is as simple as that. You actually can become more profitable. And I've been thinking about this quite a lot over the last year or so, about how you can become so much more profitable without actually selling any more product, without actually increasing the number of customers. Customer acquisition cost is a hugely important way of sustaining your business going into 2022. The second thing I would really encourage you to do is you daily think about the numbers and the financials and the metrics, is think about your budget as an investment rather than a cost. If the mindset of the organization is that, yeah, we've got a cost and it's a budget, oh, we've got to spend with marketing, rather than, yes, we invest in marketing because this is the outcome we expect, we demand, and we know we can get, then that is a change of mindset required. So is your budget currently an investment or a cost? Because you need to help the organization learn the language of the word investment, and that all of your resources, and this is point number 3, all of the time that you spend should have a return on investment. In other words, if you're listening to this here today, what was the ROI of you being on this webinar today? What was the return on the investment of the hour that you've spent here with me? You've got to figure that little bit out, because it is down to that level of detail. Because otherwise we procrastinate and we waste and we just kind of sit there doing stuff without really having the evidence that it was a valuable way to spend our time and our energies. So are your resources an ROI? Are they a return on the investment in you? An investment is people, time, and budget. So just make a note of those little 3 things, so that every day when you turn up to work, be it virtually or in person, you think, actually, yeah, I'm an investment. I've been invested in here. There's my time, there's me and the people around me, and there's a budget associated with me, the amount I get paid, but also the budget that I'm being entrusted with. And those 3 things are really important. And you need to be obsessing around the return that you're giving. And that's the language the business wants from you. Your boss wants to know that you're a valuable asset, but also the finance team as well. So ultimately, if you can be doing those things, you're really changing the mindset of the organization, as well as actually doing it for yourself as well, making yourself ultimately marketable as an individual, but also showing and demonstrating that you really, really care, okay? Ultimately, you care beyond your current role. I've seen so many people rising to the surface and being promoted first because they do this stuff. This is not rocket science. It's actually fundamentally quite simple. But most people listening to this and watching this webinar won't do it. But if you can be one of the people who does do this and actually takes the reins of this opportunity, then you will see very, very quickly, and this isn't something that takes time. This is something that happens from the minute you take accountability and responsibility and do this, you will see a positive change in the way that others react to you, the conversations that you'll have, the opportunities, projects, and campaigns that will come your way, and the relationship development with others who potentially it could be quite surprising for within the organization. So treat the business almost as if it's your own, okay? Make every cent, every penny, make it count. Be passionate in that way. Don't just think of it, I go to work, I do a job, I go home, I have a life. Think about this as if it's your own business, because as soon as you start doing that, that to me was one of the things that I was told years and years and years ago before I had my own business, when I was actually employed in a proper job, as I always call it. One of the things I was told was, look, if you treat this as your own, you will just change your mindset as to how you operate within this organization. Because in every cent that you spend in time, in people around you, in your own time, in your own salary, and the budgets that you're given, it will count, because you'll make it count, because it's important. And the other thing that we can do to demonstrate that we are caring beyond our current role is to make sure that we are the voice of our stakeholders as well as the customer. It's not just the individual stakeholders, sorry, the individual customers that we work with and for. It's actually all of the stakeholders in and around our organization. So ultimately caring for everybody that we encounter and treating the business as if it's our own, return on investment based around evidence, and really importantly, stepping into the shoes and being really empathetic to those we encounter, those we work with, because that really is the key to commercial thinking, is taking other people's perspective with evidence and thinking about everything as being a return on investment. So that's what I want to share with you. I'm hoping that that is useful and helpful, and that you've got some ideas and some thinking to sort of be going away with for this. The upcoming one, which obviously extends into this, the upcoming webinar, the emotional intelligence and empathy, shows how you can actually begin to build, higher levels of EI and build that empathy with, particularly with others within your organization. So that's going to be quite interesting to share and watch, some tools and tips and ideas develop and evolve with that one. And then we'll look obviously into how we can extend that with the continuous improvement on the 29th of October. And then when things start to sort of stack up for you and things start to become a bit more challenging, we'll look at kind of resilience on the 12th of November. But for here today, those are the things I wanted to cover with you to help you with your commercial thinking. And it is about empathy. It is about really, really people. Whilst we think of commercial thinking as being very much about the numbers, it's actually the people behind the numbers in many, many ways. And these are some topics that, as you know, if you're regular on this one, the topics that we share on the Cambridge Marketing podcast and also mine, the Neil Wilkins podcast. And I would certainly actively encourage, if you don't already follow these two, have a little look at those. You can search Neil Wilkins podcast, and you'll find recording to this one appearing a little bit later today. But also, if we haven't already connected, I would really like to connect with you, and I can obviously then keep you in touch with similar webinars and similar kind of content and stuff that I find in my travels, which I'm hoping will be very useful to you. So I do share a lot of these kinds of topics on my social media. So let's connect. If we're not connected already on Twitter, LinkedIn and others, you can find me by searching Neil Wilkins X, particularly in LinkedIn. It's always good to connect. And yeah, so if there are any questions that have popped up at all on the chat, I shall wait to hear from Lauren as to whether there are any. If they aren't, and people are still kind of reeling from the challenges I've given them, obviously then it is very much over to you guys as to kind of taking the reins and taking the accountability for this. And I'll sort of wish you all the best of luck for it. But I will stick around for a few minutes, and we'll see if there is any chat questions that have popped up. And otherwise, if there aren't, and you wish to make a retreat now into this brand new, brave new world of commercially astute marketing that I've just offered up to you, then hopefully I will see you at the next event on the 15th of October. Remember, you can obviously register there at marketingcollege.com/events if you'd like to attend any of these. All three of the upcoming events are now in place and ready for registration. So I'd hope to see you there at those as well. So thank you to Michelle for your comment there. Thank you to John, who's just sent me one via direct message, and to Robin, much appreciated. It's always great to get some nice feedback. Thank you, Lars. Thank you, Michael. Another direct message to me. I think I must have left people quite reeling on this topic, and yes, we haven't actually got any questions in the chat, which is great. Great news, really, in terms of clearly I've explained everything very, very well, and I've noticed that actually the vast majority of people have stayed right to the end. So thank you very much sort of for that, and thanks again for your direct messages that have come through, and also those that have been put out into the everyone to see chat. Yeah, it's great. It's really nice to know that you're appreciating the ideas and the thinking. And as I always say with these kinds of webinars, if you just take away one little idea, one little thing, and go away and test it, you can always come back and rewatch and look to see some of the other stuff and test that out in the future. As we said right at the start, Lauren posted into the chat that if you wish to know any of the other links to the previous webinar episodes in this series, if you direct email her at lauren@marketingcollege.com, she will send you the links to the previous recordings, and this one will be in that list as well. So thank you very much for coming along. Thank you again always to Lauren for successfully and obviously very professionally and efficiently hosting it. Always works first time, so that's great. Thank you again, Lauren. And thank you to everybody who's come along to this one. Have a great weekend wherever you are, and good luck with your commercially astute marketing going forward.